next were for the attorney.
Okay, well, does anyone else have questions? Okay, Senator McKim.
Yes, thank you. Mr Moratis, when I erroneously attempted to ask about a specific case in regards to whether or not the Australian government had received a request for extradition in regards to an individual, and I erroneously attempted to ask that in Group 1, you responded, I think, that you don't comment on individual cases.
That's my understanding. I'll ask the relevant experts to
thank you.
read us the Riot Act on that one.
Well, hopefully there won't be too much of that, but I guess, and I don't want to in any way take advantage of the fact that the attorney's not sitting next to you, but is that I guess I wanted to ask, is that a policy decision of government that you don't comment on that kind of case, or is it, does it flow as a result of legalities?
My understanding is that's been long-standing, but I'll ask my resident experts on extradition.
Thank you.
Senator, I'm responsible for extradition within the department, and it is a long-standing practice not to release information publicly about requests for extradition until someone's actually arrested or brought before the court. And the reason for that is that it could give a fugitive an opportunity to flee if they became aware that they were subject of such a request.
Okay, thank you. I understand that rationale that you're putting to the committee here. Can you talk in general terms about the extradition treaty between Australia and Chile?
Yes.
Okay. Clause 14 of that treaty requires the government to respond as soon as possible to an extradition request. Is that correct?
I don't have a copy of the treaty before me. I'd be happy to take specifics on notice, but most such treaties do provide a provision like that.
So that would not be an unusual provision
Correct.
in an extradition treaty? Okay. Could I just ask you to take on notice whether that is in fact a term in the extradition treaty between Australia and Chile, and also what the department would consider to be as soon as possible. Now, I understand that may be a sort of how long is a piece of string argument, or sorry, how long is a piece of string question, because it may be contingent on the specific circumstances of an individual case. I do understand that.
Senator, if I may, I think I can answer that question
Yes.
Right now. The second part of your question, which is, it would, as you've perhaps anticipated, depend upon the circumstances. I can tell you that we respond pretty quickly, and most other countries do as well. But each country has its own differing arrangements between law enforcement and central authorities handling extradition, home offices and whatnot. And so you can't quantify across the board, or necessarily even with a particular country, what is a reasonable length of time. I would say in terms of how we handle things, we try to respond to things as quickly as we can, and I can tell you that in the matters we're handling now, we're looking at days and weeks when we either go back to a country and say we need more or action the information we've received. Unfortunately, at the other end, it can be months.
Can it be years?
Overall, yes. I'm not aware of any situation where the next step in the matter has taken years, although that's theoretically possible. But I can assure you we would be prompting such authorities. We wouldn't wait years for something to come back.
Which authorities might you have to prompt in a situation where we are talking about a matter of years or a very long period of time?
I wouldn't want to identify a particular country. The authorities that we deal with are...
you mean foreign authorities in a foreign
No,
country?
absolutely. That's what I meant. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, within Australia that wouldn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Is there any capacity for individual members of Parliament to be briefed privately about extradition requests and progress or lack thereof on extradition, on specific extradition requests? Oh, it's probably one for the attorney, really, rather than the department. It's probably a policy decision at the end of the day. Sorry, attorney, were you listening?
No.
Okay. I've asked whether there's any capacity for an individual senator to be briefed privately in regards to a specific request for extradition. Your agency's been clear that you do not discuss individual requests publicly.
No, Senator.
There's no capacity for a senator
Well,
to be
that's not
briefed.
usually done, Senator, because of the sensitive nature of these matters, for the reasons Mr Bohus has no doubt explained to you.
Well, yes, he has, and I'm nearly finished with this line of questioning just for the Chair and the committee's benefit. How then is the Parliament intended to hold the government to account in cases where it is alleged to an MP that the government is not responding quickly enough to a request for extradition?
Well, Senator, there are quite a number of areas where, because they involve intelligence, where they involve the operation of the criminal justice system, where they involve other matters that are necessarily confidential, where they involve matters of diplomatic sensitivity and others, where the executive government is unable, where they involve legal advice, where for perfectly proper reasons the executive government is not able to share with individual members of parliament or the parliament corporately everything about which it is informed.
Yes, Attorney, thanks for that. That's roughly, it's probably an expansion, but it's in broad terms similar to what officers of your department informed me early. But the question I asked is what mechanisms are left for MPs to avail themselves of to hold the government to account in circumstances where it's alleged to us that the government's not proceeding quickly enough with an extradition
So
request?
you've made some changes here. All right, so this is the up-to-date one. Oh, hang on.
This is his. It is, clearly.
Do they include Don's changes? They do.
Well, while the attorney's waiting, sorry.
Sorry, I just was distracted, Senator.
Yes,
what was
I
your
know.
question?
Well, the question was the one I asked you moments ago, which you didn't answer, which is what can you suggest as a mechanism for an MP or a senator to hold the government to account in circumstances where it's alleged to us that the government's not responding quickly enough to an extradition request?
Well, you could always ask the minister privately, and on a case-by-case basis, the minister can take advice and see how far he can, on a private basis, seek to accommodate you.
Thank you. I'll get in touch with you privately. I thank you for that, Attorney. Last question is, are you able to, or is the department able to inform the committee how many extradition requests are currently before the government, and whether you can break them down into any kind of categories around, for example, allegations of abuses of human or civil rights?
Senator, the Attorney General's Department's annual report does provide the numbers of completed and new requests each year. Yep. This includes the total number of requests made, granted, withdrawn, refused, or otherwise finalized, and those carried forward. It also includes the countries that have granted extradition requests, the number and citizenship of persons extradited to and from Australia, and the major categories of offence for which extradition was granted.
Thanks, Mr Gray. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator, can I seek a clarification?
Yes.
When you spoke about taking a question on notice,
yes,
it was broken into two halves. The first half was the wording of that provision in the treaty. Did you still require that?
Is that treaty on the public record?
Yes, I believe
that's fine.
so.
That's fine. No, I don't. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.